Well, welcome to Community at Home for September 2nd. Hope that you're doing well and getting through this, what is now the first week of September, although the forecast is not so great. I think this weekend, Friday through Monday, I think the high is all over 110. So it doesn't feel or sound or look anything like fall, does it? So maybe in another couple of weeks we'll get a little bit of a break. So this coming weekend, it's Labor Day weekend, the air conditioners are going to be laboring for sure. This past Sunday, I talked about this whole idea of the place that we're in and all of the anxiety and fear and apathy and so many different things that are present in life right now. And I asked a question: what is eroding my communion with God? That was one of the big questions in the sermon from this past Sunday. What is eroding my communion with God? And I want to ask that again today in the middle of our week. What is eroding your communion with God? One of the challenges from Sunday was to come up with 3 things that you're going to stop doing. You know, we had the bucket, and Scripture teaches us that we are more like a bucket. We're not a fountain, so we have to put the right things in order for the right things to come out. And if we put the wrong things in, then the wrong things are going to come out. So in order to have the right things in the bucket, then I'm going to have to eliminate some of the things that are not right. So the challenge was this week to come up with 3 things to stop doing. And if you haven't done that, I really want to encourage you to do that. I really want you to understand, as your pastor, my goal is not just to have a church, and my goal is not even to just teach you the Bible. That's not my goal. My goal is for you to live the life that Jesus has for us to live the truth of Jesus in everyday life. Now, in order to live the truth, I have to know the truth. So we're going to teach and study and read and talk about and sometimes debate Scripture. But that's not the point. The point of gathering on a Sunday is not just to hear a sermon. The point is to take the truth and apply it in our lives so that we can be who God's called us to be and live the life that He has for us. So a challenge was to have 3 things that you're going to stop doing. Do you have 3 things? Did you listen to that sermon and then just kind of move on to the next thing? Did you come up with 3 things, but you have found yourself by Wednesday, you're back into that old habit of continuing to do those things? Or have you chosen your 3 things and you have the resolve and you've entered into the fight to say, I'm not going to do these things because these things are eroding my communion with God. It is not good for my soul. Jesus tells us in Matthew chapter 11, He's saying, listen, if you're heavy, burdened, if you're weary, come to me and I will give you rest. What He offers us is not heavy. It's not hard. He is gentle. He is kind. He's humble. But He says that we have to learn from Him. We have to let Him teach us. The word learn that's there in the Greek, it means to understand. So I have to understand what Jesus is offering me. I have to understand the life that Jesus is saying that we should live, and we have to see that in Him. Jesus never filled His bucket with things that weren't appropriate. He never filled His bucket with things that destroyed His soul. He only filled His bucket with the things that renewed Him. And if we're going to do that, and we're going to live a life that is in the fullness of Him, if we're going to live a life where the evidence of the fruit of the Spirit, things like love and joy and peace and patience and gentleness and kindness and self-control and faithfulness, if we're going to have to live in that. And so I think there's 3 things that you got to do. You got to acknowledge, you got to release, and you got to learn. You got to acknowledge, you got to release, and you got to learn. You have to acknowledge what is eroding your communion with God. So that's the question. What is eroding my communion with God? Acknowledge it and then release it. I'm going to stop doing it. And then I'm going to learn from Him. I'm going to learn from Jesus. So I hope it's not just a sermon. I hope it's not just an exercise. I hope you just didn't write that down in your notes and then close the notebook and not think about it. So I'm going to ask you again, what are the three things? What are three things that are eroding your communion with God? Now, here's the deal. You know what's going to happen? When you acknowledge those three things, you release those three things, and you begin to learn from Him, you know what He's going to remind you of? You know what He's going to give you? Another three things. Another three things will begin to erode your soul. So that's the daily fight that we're in. So I want to encourage you, find those three things, eliminate them so that Jesus can become more real and full in your life, so that we can move on to the next three things as we live the truth of Jesus in everyday life. Miss you. Hope to see you soon.